you for the invitation. Uwe called me, I think, like 3-4 weeks ago and said, yeah, can you come here and give a presentation? I said, yes, I can talk for 2 hours. And Uwe said, you only have 20 minutes. And I cannot give an architect 20 minutes. But I cut down, I have 60 slides, so I calculate like 20 seconds per slide. But I also promise there will not be so much text, there will only be images. But I will also be here the whole day, so if you have questions, just come around. But as Uwe said, I'm partner at Henning Larsen Architects out of Copenhagen. I actually have a background in engineering and architecture, so I have a right brain that understands numbers and columns and CO2, and then I have my left brain being with Henning Larsen, architecture, shapes, colors, and spaces. So I try to combine this. Short introduction, Henning Larsen is a global design firm. We are around 700 architects based in Copenhagen, Denmark, but we also have design hubs across Europe and US and Australia. We do a lot of different typologies. You can see a lot of green and brown colors here. It's because we are very fascinated by nature, but also by timber. I think 80% of what we do at the moment is timber building, timber square meters coming out of the office globally. So timber is a big part of what we do. The first one I want to show is, as Uwe said, is also the world of Volvo. It's just opened in the spring. It's like the Ferrari world in Milan, just much better. It's in Gothenburg in Sweden. In Sweden they call the allemansrätt, is the right to nature, so you cannot own nature. Everyone is allowed to go and camp and do picnic, sheltering in the forest, but also in the landscape. So everyone can go up and have a look at the world of Volvo and go to the roof. And of course, Volvo is on a green transition, so of course it needs to be bio-based and timber. As Katrina also showed, when you do those kind of shapes, more free-form shapes, you need to have digital tools to be able to perform them and design with them. We have a computational design team that very much work together with our manufacturers. And we see the timber industry is more proactive in the concrete industry. The concrete industry is just producing. The timber industry wants to get in dialogue. So this one was unfortunately not with Katrina, it was with VHAG in Austria, where we did the integrated design. So we built in what is the manufacturing process and how could we work that with the architecture. So when we changed the shape, the diameters of the columns, it also changed the production phase. So we understood what is the price when we do design changes and what is the manufacturing time. So this workflow works very much good together. This is Philip, he's one of the design lead. I have never seen a colleague of mine hugging a concrete beam, but Philip was actually going there and hugging one of the big timber beams. And I think there's something about it, there's something of feeling about it. It's warm, it's soft, it's also creating a smile. So everyone that works on timber building is also smiling. So that's also like a great understanding of the value of working with timber. This is just an image of the complexity. It's very huge, it's grand, it's very kind of, you see the timber when you get into the building, it's very part of the architecture. And of course it's also the whole thing of working with Volvo. CO2 is a big part of why doing this. This is just a calculation of the upfront emission, comparing reinforced concrete with steel. And you can see there's almost a saving of 6,000 tons of CO2 by choosing a superstructure in CLT compared to if you go for the steel structure. Of course, you use much less materials, also as Katarina said, but it doesn't matter when you work with timber. It's actually even better to use a bit more materials because it stores more concrete. Then Uwe, you said Felleby is the first timber structure, full timber city coming up in Copenhagen, just out of Copenhagen. It was inspired by Christiania. Some of you have been to Christiania? It doesn't have a pusher street, this one, but it's like, but we want to have the same atmosphere. It's like, it should be the variety of Christiania. It should be something that is grown from the bottom up. It's not like some that is fully standardized, Le Corbusier. But again, it's also modular design. So how do you combine this modular design with the variety in architecture? That was the big part of this project. It's just outside Copenhagen. It's on a landfill area. But the whole idea here was to how do we combine nature with the built environment? How do we create a new kind of city that take in nature but still have residence for people? So we took a traditional city block that every one of us know, where we have the courtyard in the middle, and then we inspired by the village, the old village, and then we did a new typology that was a combination of an open courtyard block, so we get the intimacy in the courtyard, but we also open up to nature. So instead of doing a big master plan for all of it, we created 3 villages. And it's also going into the phases of the contractor really like that, because then he could build one and then he could build another one. And then we also have the resident moving in. So every of the 3 villages have their own plaza in the center, and then it opens up to nature. And here you can see one of them in the design, where you have the courtyard, and then you have the open new Y that is open up to nature and is stepping down to nature. All this is in timber structures. Some of this is prefab element, and some of them is more on-site element. And it's not all we design the master plan. We're designing a few houses within the master plan, but there's also we open up for other architects to be coming in to create the variety and the feeling of Christiania. It cannot be done by one architect. So this is the imagination of the life we want to create in this village, a combination of some local feeling, but also the really connection to nature. But some of the big barriers are when you're designing with timber, of course, to make the insurance company relying on what you are doing. And in Denmark, fire is a big focus area. Every time you do a small twist, there's a lot of twists in the building, you need to do a 1-to-1 scale, a fireproof scale. So there's a lot of investment for the building owner here on fire testing. We do, I think, around 50 different fire testing 1-to-1 scale of the facade. This building is coming up now. This is a combination of wooden facade cladding and a store element in the facade as insulated element. And again, we have this promise to the resident that they all have view to nature, as most of them have access to nature also. All of them would have a balcony, but no pets and cats is allowed to come there. So that's like a negative. It's also just to understand when you're doing something for nature, you also have to react on it. And we know cats are chasing mice and small birds. And nature is a part of it. We need to protect nature. So when you move in here, you're not allowed to bring your house cat. But then again, you get this beautiful view instead. Another project we are doing is called the Marmormolen. It's marble pier. It's the biggest timber structure coming up in Copenhagen, Denmark at the moment. It's around 25,000 square meters of glulam structure. This is where we are now. But again, it's also understanding that we need also to understand there is building code we need to fulfill, and the building code is based in Denmark, is based on the concrete industry. We have been building concrete for the last 80 years. So fire, vibration, thermal mass is something that we need to challenge. So this is also a hybrid structure. We have concrete cores, mostly because of fire safety. We also have a lot of concrete below ground. What we see in Denmark at the moment is difficult to build basement with the new CO2 regulation, because basement is difficult to bring timber underground because of the humidity. So the whole infrastructure is changing in Copenhagen. This is part of the Nordhavn project. There's an urban harborfront project. There's no below ground parking. It's all above ground parking, as that's because of the CO2. And then also the floor to ceiling height. Timber beams are bigger than steel beams. So here we also do a combination to have the ductwork around. We create those hat profiles in steel. So there's a different combination of techniques that we still have concrete, steel, and timber together. And I think it's also to get the best out of the different materials. It's not only just to be religious and just work with timber. We also need to understand the technique of different materials. And one big part of it is that timber take up more space than a steel beam will do. So the first thing we did for this office building, that was of course the concern for the client of the efficiency of the building. The sizes of that beam coming down is like a fridge. It's like something like this. It's beautiful and huge, but it also take up spaces. So the first thing we did was to do the space plan before we actually do the structural system, to understand how can we get the people in the building that we need to have in the building, and how do we get the efficiency. And then we lay out the beam after doing the space layout. One of the positive things is that they can actually construct during weekend. Normally in Denmark, all building sites will be closed down during weekend because of noise pollution for the neighbors. But when we have done the piling, stapling, the timber is super quiet, so they can also work in the weekend. That speed up the building process. So why all this timber and why all this focus on the regulation? This is actually a video from one of my colleagues. He went down to his parents in Valencia just on Monday, and he sent back this video. We know this is happening all over. We saw it in Spain last week. But the positive thing is things are changing. The EU taxonomy is really kicking in. We see it from the global and big investors and contractors we have. Now it's not only nice to have, it's also a need to have for the investment. And we see this across Europe, but also investment across Australia and also US. So that is really positive. In Denmark, we are the first country in EU to have strict regulation on CO2. You are not allowed to get a building permit if you don't document your life cycle assessment. And this is, came out last year, and this is the new regulation that comes out in January next year. And that states for different typologies that you need to be below 7.5 for multi-story residential and office buildings. And that's for the whole life cycle and the building. And we also know where to go in 27 and 29. So that's pushing very much the industry to fulfill that standard. It's not a nice to have, it's a need to have, otherwise you cannot get the building permit in Denmark if you don't document it. And then they also put in the limitation on the building side, that is like the A4 and A5 phases, that is like the energy or the fuel consumption on the building site and the materials transporting to the building site. So it's also now if you're shipping your materials from China, it will affect the CO2 and it can be limited within the standard. But is that good enough? Are we good enough? What we see is that now there's a standard of 10.5 kilogram per CO2. It's very much built unusual. We can do concrete building on that scale. When we start the new standard, we can start to call it sustainable. It's not really sustainable. It's not regenerative. But if we need to fulfill the Paris Agreement, we need to be below 3 kilograms, and we even though we need to be below within the planetary boundary, we need to be below 1.5 kilograms of CO2. So there's a long way to go there to actually be sustainable and be regenerative in our design. Maybe a lot of you, I think, will also hear this today about the life cycle assessment. There's a European standard how you calculate it. Countries have different phases into design, and some of them have different lifespan of the buildings. This is the upfront emission. That is very much what we are focusing on at the moment, because that is the here and now emission. But we also need to take in the operational energy and the replacement. Operational energy have been a big focus for many years. It's still in many countries where we have a black grid. In Denmark, the grid is almost 100% green. So when we do a life cycle assessment, it's only 10% that is within the operational carbon. 90% are in the embodied carbon. So that is also why there's so big focus on the timber and concrete. And when the grid is turning more and more green, when we turn away from the Russian gas, we will see a much more focus on the embodied carbon and not so much on the operational. But then you, of course, you also have the end of life scenario. In a building, in the methodology, it's like have a life of 50 years. And then you can calculate in the beyond life if you have agreement and take-back strategies. But there is also a dilemma. We see a lot of EPDs that actually, when you combine a stone and a wood, a timber, and you manufacture it to like a stone wool bed or wood fiber insulation, often the stone wool bed will perform better than the wooden insulation or the wood fiber insulation. And why is that? That seems very unlogical, because we all know that timber are good. It's equation for because we're calculating the whole life cycle of the materials. So the wood or the stone wool insulation have a high upfront emission, but it's actually have a very low end of life scenarios because it's kind of disappearing. If you have the wood fiber, it have a negative upfront emission, but it also the carbon is released again after the life cycle because it's like burned or fired up in the methodology. So that we need to take into account and understand. And it's also something we need to challenge as an industry. If you talk with the producing of the stone wool bed, this is often what will happen. Then it will be disposal. It will go into landfills, and then it's disappear. It's like the rabbit and the magician. And we don't need a rabbit in a hat in the climate changes. We need real facts and real data. So I think we need to also challenge we understand the methodology, but we also need to challenge the methodology. And why do we need to do that? It's because we have this critical window. If we need to fulfill the Paris Agreement, we have 10 years to act. We cannot wait 50 years to end-of-life scenarios. We need to account for what we do today. That's also why bio-based materials are so good. And then Uwe, I was happy to see that the pyramid. This pyramid was actually invented by Henning Larsen, one of our researchers, and it was actually very basically like a copy-paste of the food pyramid. I think every one of you know the food pyramid. Learning from school, you should have the carrot and the cucumber, and then you should leave the red beef and the candy to the top. It's not to say that we all need to be vegan, and it's not to say that Friday evening we can have a glass of red wine and a beef, but it's just saying the hierarchy. And it's the same what the pyramids are saying. And it's also very comparable, like production of 3 cucumbers is 1 kilogram of CO2. It's the same to 1/4 of a grilled chicken. So you can imagine how many grilled chicken that are in this room with all the steel and concrete. 1 kilogram of CO2 is 1 to 412 times of aluminium window. And you can compare to steel beams and stone wool bed. But there's also a lot of talk about technology. Can we capture carbon? Yes, we can capture. This is the first plant coming up in Iraqi, but is this realistic? It costs €1 to capture 1 kilogram of carbon. So imagine how much it costs to capture the carbon of an aluminium window, and then look at Brussels. How much will it cost to capture the CO2 from Brussels? It will be quite a huge investment. But going back to the food pyramid or the materials pyramid, then we did a research project, and then we started to look down in the bottom corner, so what is the best to start with? And then we saw straw. Straw is a leftover product from agriculture. Then we want to test it, and we did a school building, a small 200 square meters of school building. And we use straw, and again, straw have a negative, it absorbs carbon, and it's also a leftover product. In Denmark, we burn it in our wastewater treatment plant, but if you look globally, there's a lot of, it's not wildfire, it's not forest fire, but it's actually plant fires where they burn out their fields. But imagine if you can bring that back into the building industry. So that's what we did here with this building like Lego blocks. So all Danes know how to build a straw building. This is actually Magnus and Peters, one of our architects that went to the building site with the constructor and understood and built the building together. This is the build-up. Unfortunately, this is in Danish, but there's some wooden cladding on the outside, then there's a ventilated cavity. Then we have the wood fiber sheet, and then we have this. Then we have what you call for the wind to secure the infiltration. And then we have the straw element. Of course, the straw element is a bit thicker than the normal element. It's about 400 millimeters. And then we have clay plaster on the inside. And this is how it looks like today. And there's no ductwork in this building. It's purely natural ventilated. We have in this lamellas, we have like a window that opens and closes to the CO2 content in the room. And instead of putting in a mechanical filter, we have an eelgrass filter, just purely eelgrass that absorbs the heavy particle and the sound coming from outside. The last project I want to show is the scale of, we did this small school for 200 square meters. Then we thought the next project must be much bigger. Then we went for 200 to 200,000 square meters of the same technology. So this is the best center, logistics center in Holland. It's in the planning phase. It's in the Leylandstad. And here you can see it. There's some logistic, and then there's some office building to it. And it's also a combination of CLT structures and straw element facades. And we did a lot. Again, it was very much driven by the client. The client is bestseller. They also need to improve their value chains and the scope 3 reporting. So that was also part of the whole ESG strategy to see how long we could go with the reduction of the carbon emission in this structure. And now we are around 36% reduction, but we even need to go beyond that. So wrapping up, the window to prevent the 1.5 is shutting down, and I think I'm agreeing with Uwe. Maybe it's already shut down. Maybe we need to look to 2 and 2.5 degrees. But definitely using biogenic and timber materials is the key factor for the upfront reduction, the here and now reduction. Thank you.